This is a recording of what was presented at a recent professional society meeting. Why Lean and our Six Sigma deployments fail and what you can do to resolve the issue. The agenda for this session is I'll be describing some concepts from Deming's red bead experiment. We'll utilize an article to describe the concepts of what can be done with Lean Six Sigma to take it to the next level. We're going to then talk about in the professional society meeting, how we had people fill in the blanks during the presentation, and then how teams collaborated on filling out the forms, and then teams listed their takeaways from the session, and finally, links to additional information. So this session will actively discuss the concepts described in a Quality Progress August 2017 article titled Implementation Beyond Lean Six Sigma. This article can be downloaded, so I highly suggest that if you're reviewing this recording, then you would download this article and participate in what is suggested in the article. In addition, this is another document that should be downloaded, and I'll be asking people that attend this session to actually fill in the blanks, which will be basically the high points of the presentation. So let's talk about Deming's red bead experiment. Deming used this experiment in his 4-day training sessions, which he did in 1980s. Basically, he had a container of white and red beads, and you were to have less than 5 red beads when you used a paddle to actually select these, to actually draw a sample from this population. So in our case, we're going to have 3 operators, and we're going to run 2 different days. So our first operator is Anthony. So we describe to Anthony how he is to go in and draw from this red beads, and he's supposed to have the paddle at 45 degrees angles when he withdraws his paddle from the tub of beads, and that's not 46 or not 44, 45 degrees, and then what we do is count the number of red beads. So Anthony, go at it. Anthony had 11 red beads. This did not meet our objective. So I talked to Anthony and say, you need to do a better job because we spent a lot of time coming up with this goal. So now we're having Jamie use the paddle to draw some red beads from this container. So Jamie, you need to really do better than Anthony, and you need to get 5 red beads or less. Jamie, apparently you didn't listen to me. We need to have 5 beads, red beads or less. You actually did worse than Anthony. That's terrible. Okay, Brad, you're another operator, and I want you to listen to me. You take the paddle, you put it in the container, you withdraw it at 45 degrees, and you need to have less than 5 red beads. Brad, that's even worse than the other 2. You're not listening to me. We need to have less than 5 red beads. Okay, that's day 1. Let's move into day 2. Okay, Anthony, we're going to look how well you do in day 2. So again, hope you slept on it, and hope you now are doing a better job of meeting our goal of 5 red beads or less. Anthony, you did not meet 5 red beads or less. You did better than yesterday, but you did not meet our goal. That's not acceptable. Jamie, I told you we need to have less than 5 red beads. You're still not doing very well. That's terrible. Now, you did better than yesterday, but still, that's not acceptable. Okay, Brad, it's up to you. You've got to do a better job. Concentrate on what you're doing so you get less than 5 red beads. You got 8 red beads. You didn't listen. You're better than yesterday, but you didn't go in and listen to me and actually work hard enough to get less than 5 red beads. Well, this is a summary of what we had from the 3 operators. As you can see, they did not meet our goals. That is not acceptable. Now, what happened? Well, what's the situation with a red bead experiment? As somebody's mentioned in the class, say, hey, the process is not capable of giving us 5 red beads or less. However, that's how we often set goals. Our process is not capable of giving us what we want. Now, what scorecards might we have in the organization that are aligned to that way of thinking? What red, yellow, green scorecards? This is an actual red, yellow, green scorecard. We look at whenever it's red, we're supposed to take action. We're not meeting our goal. If it's green, we feel okay, but we can toggle between red and green and nothing really has changed. So that's an issue. So what I'm suggesting, we need to really address that issue, how we look at scorecards. So that's part of what this article presentation is all about. So if now you look at the article that you've downloaded or that you have conveniently in front of you, and also the presentation statements that hopefully you will fill in as we're going through this presentation. So let's go in now and look at the article. And what I'm going to be basically doing is talking you through this article. Now, when we look at this article, what we notice is that we start talking about people getting laid off. They're practitioners. They're working a process of pruner reading. But when times get tough, often one of the first people that get laid off is the practitioners. So what's wrong with that picture? That's when they should be needed the most. However, executives are apparently not seeing the value of what they're doing. So everybody knows organizations need to improve, but how do we actually make these improvements? How we demonstrate improvements to others is really important. So if we go in and look at what's happened over the years, I can net it out to basically 2 different things. Number 1 and number 2 listed on this sheet. Number 1 is dealing with scorecards. We really are not examining scorecards correctly in that we're looking at point values. We're not looking at it from a process point of view, separating common and special cause variability. That's a big deal. Now, what I'm talking about is common and cause variability from a high level or a 30,000-foot level point of view. This is not the same as Deming's common cause and special cause variability. So let's consider the time it takes you to commute from home to work. Is it always going to take you the same amount of time to the second? Well, obviously not. You're going to have different amounts of delay because of traffic signals and whatever. So let's consider it takes us 25 to 35 minutes. That's common cause variability. Now, if it took us an hour one day because of inclement weather or major traffic accident, we can talk about that. But we really don't have any right to talk about all the ups and downs excursion in the 25 to 35 range of common cause variability. But let's say we establish a goal of 33 minutes. So if it's 34 minutes, we say, what happened? We didn't meet our goal. Well, I just said we shouldn't do that because that's common cause variability. But that happens all the time in red, yellow, green scorecards. So let's say that 25 to 35 minutes is not acceptable. We have to do something different to the process. So let's say we leave a half an hour early, we changed our process, now it takes us 18 to 22 minutes. So the point is, if we have common cause variability, we have to change our process. But traditional scorecards don't separate common and special cause variability because the actions for each of these are quite different. The second item is management by objectives. So we've had various people talk about in the past how we should manage the business, and basically we set out management by objectives, and that's what the red, yellow, green scorecards are based upon. But it can lead to very unhealthy behaviors. We really want to have the right metrics and track them correctly so it leads to best behaviors. Now let's look at Lean and Six Sigma deployments. Now with the Six Sigma deployment, traditionally people are looking at how much did you save? So an organization might report $100 million in savings, but nobody can find the money. Now in a lean organization, what can happen is we're doing all these Kaizen events. However, we're really not lining this efforts to the value from a performance metric point of view. That's an issue. So what I'm suggesting, we need to do something differently. Now, what I think is important is that we start looking at what we're actually doing to be consistent with Wikipedia's definition for operational excellence. So if you were to search on operational excellence and look what Wikipedia has to say, you could then notice the last six words that it's got, which is toward the sustainable improvement of key performance metrics. That's not what Lean Six Sigma does. It's trying to look at how much you're going to improve the business through a problem statement. It doesn't really talk about improving the metrics. It doesn't give us much focus to that. Many times I've seen project report outs and articles for Lean Six Sigma, and the benefits are rather anecdotal. Leaderships are not seeing the benefits to them. So we need them focused more on the metrics and their improvement. So in traditional process improvement efforts have not been aligned to the last six words of this operational excellence definition. So what I'm suggesting, first, we need to have performance measures be reported from a process point of view, and then two, we need to have a structured link must be established between the performance metric and the processes that created them. Now, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm suggesting two things are needed. First thing is performance metrics reported from a process point of view. That to me is very important. Red, yellow, green scorecards, a table of numbers, time series, tracking pie charts, those sorts of traditional performance reporting is not from a process point of view. So how do you get metrics from a process point of view? So what we want to have is if common cause variability is occurring and the response is undesirable, we need to look at the overall process. Secondly, in this form of reporting, we need to identify special cause events that could trigger special events that need to be changed. Now that could be good or bad, but the thing is we want to look at things differently. How do we accomplish that? What I'm suggesting is we look at figure 1 to look at the top two charts first to see if a process is stable. Okay? So we want to look at and see if a process is stable, and then if it is stable, we wanted to say how well it's actually performing, and we can do that with a probability plot for a distribution of continuous response, and then at the bottom it states how the process is performing in words that everybody understands. So for this particular case, it's the process is performing and stable, and it's got about 34% knock performance rate. So that's the way it will be not only now, but what we can expect in the future. And you can take transformations if appropriate to actually get this form of reporting. So if you don't like that answer, then you need to do something different to the process. Okay, and proof of the pudding that you made a change to the process is that the 30,000 foot level individuals chart changed to a new enhanced level of performance. And now, for example, we've moved down to 0.05% from 34%. So now management can see the value of this change. I want to highlight for 30,000 foot level charts, we don't use X bar and R charts, P charts, U charts, and C charts. It uses individuals charts. And I'll be sharing some articles at the end of this session that show you the reason for this way of tracking this particular metric. So the second thing that we need in operational excellence is a structured link between performance metrics and their processes. An IEE value chains, or an integrated enterprise excellence value chain, describe what an organization does and how it reports performance metrics from a process point of view. So figure 3 at the top of this page describes what an organization does relative to a value chain, and the main functions are connected across the top. Support functions are listed at the bottom. So we can see from a hospital value chain, voice of the customer, sales and marketing, deliver clinical service, invoice and collect and report financials are the main functions. And then IT, housekeeping, food service, and so on are the support structure functions. Now what we'd like to have is we'd like to have it so that this particular value chain is clickable. So, and it's automatically updated. So for example, here we click on deliver clinical service, and what do we get? We get at the top swim lane, we get the metrics we're going to have relative to quality, cost, and time for this particular function, and below that is the process that are associated with it. So the top swim lane is basically Y, the bottom lane is swim lane X. So now we have Y as a function of X. In organizations, often we have is people in the north wing of the building working on scorecards, and people in the south wing of the building working on process documentation improvement, and they don't talk to each other. The IEE value chain pulls it all together. So now you have everybody talking the same language, and it's all readily available if you have it so it's clickable. So through this overall system, we can have one, performance metric monitoring, and number two, we can have process enhancement documentation. And now we can have, whenever there's new procedures, they can be included as part of this overall value chain. And the metrics that we have at the top could be automatically updated through additional software, and which aligns to ERP system value chains, spreadsheets, and so on. Now, what we also have is a 9-step business management system. Now, this is not included in the article, but it is in the other handout. So basically, with this IEE system, we have a 9-step overall methodology. The first step is describe the vision and mission. The second step is describe what you do and how you measure what you do through the organization value chain, which includes the satellite level metric, which is financial metric, and 30,000-foot level metrics. Then what we want to do is analyze the enterprise. We'll look at the value chain metrics, theory of constraints, voice of the customer, and so on. We then in step 4 create SMART, specific, measurable, action, relevant, time-based, satellite or financial metric goals. And then what we want to do is create targeted strategies that are aligned to prove these financial goals. Step number 6, we identify high potential areas to work on and establish SMART 30,000-foot level goals, where there's an owner that now is going to be responsible for making strategic improvements to these metrics. And they're going to be reporting to their boss's boss every month or so, and so there's a sense of urgency for them to make improvements. So they're not just listing what number I'm having next quarter, but they're showing a 30,000-foot level metric, and they're looking for improvements overall for the overall process. So they ask for the project to get done, so the metrics pool for the project in 7. Now, if somebody did a good job, then they improve the procedures in step 2, which improve the 30,000-foot level, which improve the satellite level metrics. So notice how step 9 loops back to step 3, so we got to have somewhat of a plan, do, check, act of a Deming cycle on the enterprise as a whole. So that describes basically the 9-step system. So the process owner, just to reiterate, of these strategic metrics should be asking or demanding timely completion of improvement projects, since they're going to be reporting to their boss's boss about how they're doing relative to these strategic metrics. So what I've listed here is 10 steps that you might undertake if what I'm presenting to you makes sense to you. And I want to highlight a couple of these. So step number 4 is ask leadership to compare the traditional performance metric report out to a 30,000-foot level report out. Describe additional insight gained through the report. So that's one thing that you might do. Step number 8, report demonstrate improvements results to others using a newly created 30,000-foot level chart. So those are a couple things that you might undertake to explain these concepts to others. So we really want to go in and not just have localized benefits, but we really want to show how we can have benefits that's going to benefit the enterprise as a whole overall. And also we want to consider the other items in the 10 steps I listed here. So what I'd like for you to do now is break into 4 teams and go in and fill out these charts where team number 1 has steps 1 through 5, team number 2, 6 through 10, and team number 3, 11 through 15, and team number 4, 16 through 20. So what I'd like for you to do is undertake answering these questions. Okay, this is what team 1 came away with. Issues described in Deming's red bead experiment are fundamentally the same as red, yellow, green scorecard reporting methodology commonly used in organizations. So that's one of the major takeaways from this article. Let's look at the second item. With a Six Sigma deployment, you may have tracked financial benefits, notably reporting $100 million in saving. However, no one could seem to find the money. With the lean deployment, often, however, no one can describe how these lean efforts positively affected the enterprise as a whole performance metrics. Wikipedia's operational excellence definition is where the last 6 words are not really addressed, where we're really looking at sustainable improvements of key performance metrics. Number 5, in general, traditional process improvement efforts have not been aligned with the last 6 words, as I mentioned. So we like to have sustainable improvement of key performance metrics. Okay, team 2 came away with operational excellence need 1, performance metrics need to be reported from a process point of view. Number 7, if common cause variability is occurring from a high level point of view and the response is undesirable, enhancements are needed within the process. Number 8, a special cause and event from a high level point of view could trigger a specific investigation to understand what changed, that is good or bad, in a process at a similar point in time. In this 30,000-foot level report out, the top 2 charts look at assess process stability, while the bottom chart rests process capability. This non-conformance rate is provided in an easy-to-understand sentence at the bottom of the 3-chart report out. Number 10, what's important is that the process enhancement effort led to a demonstration and quantification of the improvement in the 30,000-foot level charts. Number 11, this is from Team 3. Operational excellence needs, number 2, is structural linkage between performance metrics and process. Number 12, an IEEE value chain describes what an organization does and how it can report performance metrics from a process point of view. Number 13, IEEE sustainability is accomplished through a clickable organization IEEE value chain available to those who authorize. Number 14, performance metrics monitor. Another benefit of this form of reporting is that the methodology can provide transparency of performance report out through the organizations to those authorized. Number 15, process enhancement documentation. New process procedures can be incorporated with the other functional process documentation and readily available clickable value chain. With this easy access to information, everyone responsible for executing the process will have a consistent description of what needs to be done in a process. Team number 4 came away with answer the questions by filling in the blank for 16 through 20. So 16 is, in addition to the above benefits, the 9-step IEEE operational excellence method can be used to determine which value chain metric must be improved, for example, through execution of an improvement project or Kaizen event, so that the big picture receives the most benefits from a process enhancement efforts. 17. Process owners of these strategic metric improvements undertakes would then be asking or demanding timely completion of improvements efforts that are to be executed in your area. Enhancement of an organization's process improvement efforts. Compare the traditional performance metric report out to a 30,000-foot level report. Describe additional insight gained through this report. 19. Enhance your organization's process improvement efforts. Report demonstrated improvements results to others using the newly created 30,000-foot level chart. 20. Consider implementing other steps described in this article session. Enhance your organization's process improvement efforts. So these are the answers to the fill-in-the-blank questionnaire that I provided at the beginning of the session. So let's now break into teams. Each team is to brainstorm for items that they thought were the major takeaway from this session. And then I'd like for each team to go in and list 2 major takeaways that they had. This is the results that one session that I conducted came away with. Team 1 had 9-step process flow in the back of the page handout. That's what they thought was a real major takeaway. Red, yellow, green scorecards is the wrong measurement approach. That's another takeaway they had. Team 2 said you have to know your process in order to know what to fix. Okay, that's great. Number 2, define the measurable part of the process against the relative monetary gain or loss. Great. Team number 3 came away with 1, process metrics reported from a process point of view. Item number 2, red, yellow, green scorecard issued, determining metrics prior to understanding the process. Team number 4, clear connection of high-level metrics beginning subject to common and special cause variation. Okay, great. Number 2, metrics-based as opposed to dollar-based. Okay, so those are great takeaways from this session. So now I'm offering you additional information. So if you send me an email to the email address noted there, I can send you quite a few documents. Number 1 is a Minitab add-in that's freely available that you can download from the website. And that is useful to easily create 30,000-foot level report outs. Number 2 is basically the article that I made reference to in this session. Number 3 is another article that I listed in or came out in 2017, creating a long-lasting Six Sigma deployment. Number 4 is an ASQ Statistics Division newsletter article that talked about issues with X-bar control charting. Number 5 is a 1-minute video that shows why we have issues with traditional scorecards. Number 6 is a 15-minute video why red, yellow, green scorecards are not good and what could be done to resolve the issues. 7 is an article that talks about positive metrics performance and poor business performance. How does this happen? That's a PDF. Number 8 is an article that says issues with X-bar and R charts and 30,000-foot level charting resolution. 9 talks about a similar issue with P charts, 10 with C charts. And then I have recorded a webinar listed as number 11, from business chaos to competitive advantage. Number 12 is a recorded webinar. Then I talk about reference books. And then I got 300 plus free articles that are available. and videos and so on, recorded webinars. The Master Black Belt training is something you might want to look into, especially the testimonials. Show how this is taking Lean Six Sigma or traditional Lean Six Sigma to the next level. And then you also should maybe check out our software so you can have automatically updated reporting. And I suggest if this is interesting you, then you give me contact me, and then we can have a session where then I can get more details about the benefits of this methodology. So if you know others who might have an interest in this concept, you can go in and share with them an abstract of this presentation, which also has a recording link to this presentation. So a similar remote or live session could be conducted through the following. We might have some individuals interested in improving their skill sets so they can become more valuable. Professional societies may be interested in a monthly meeting keynote presentation. We could have leaderships who have an interest in business management scorecards, and also organizations that have a need for addressing ISO 9000 or Malcolm Baldrige requirements. So the methodology I described here can also be applied to these situations that organizations are wanting to undertake. So revisiting our agenda, we talked about Deming's red bean experiment, talked about utilization of an article in this session. We filled in the blanks during the presentation. Teams shared with what they got from filling in the blanks. We had some teams takeaways from this session, and then I provided additional links for this session. So if you would like to get a copy of this presentation, or all the links, then email me, and we can also sign you up for a content-rich newsletter. I always make reference to an article that most people would be really interested in reviewing, and then as a continue sharpening the saw skill sets. So let me know if I can help you in any way.